need to know everything. Who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me.
Hello, good afternoon, Pelicans fans. Welcome to another episode of State of the Pelicans. Happy to be here with you all in the offseason as we are keeping an eye on the league and what's going on surrounding rumors and whatnot. Want to say a huge shout out to Myles for joining us today, and then Coach Sip. We've got Mike. So happy to have you joining us and to get the insight from you guys for sure today. So we want to jump right into it. We're hearing so many rumors this offseason about trades and Ingram's leaving, and you hear wild things. Herb Jones is out of here, like, give me a break, that's not happening. So but what are y'all hearing? What are you believing that you're hearing, and what's just like complete BS? We'll go ahead and start with you, Mike.
One thing I think is the trade machine stuff that I see on Twitter, social media is ridiculous. Moving Herb, like you said, Chris, BI and Herb for certain players, or BI for DeJounte Murray straight up, or BI for Darius Garland straight up, or three of the more ridiculous, to say for lack of a better term, trade rumors I've heard, just surrounding the team and BI, and only because BI is the only one that I think we can probably assume that he'll be traded at some point this summer, at the very latest, maybe going into the trade deadline the next season, assuming that things aren't going well.
Right.
But hey, moving Herb is out of the question. You'd have to go through Griff and Gale themselves. You have to go through Gale just because Herb's contract is so cheap. And then you're not, a Garland for BI trade straight up, or Garland for DeJounte Murray trade straight up, especially that trade makes no sense because, in my opinion, Murray for BI straight up is almost a lateral move. I was just talking to a buddy of mine. You talk about, DeJounte takes way more attempts way more threes than BI, but they got to go in. Trey takes a lot more threes than BI too, but Trey's actually goes in, and a lot more teams would be more scared of his shot attempts and his volume than they would of DeJounte Murray. So, and you still don't get the variety of scoring that you'll get from Murray that you get with BI, scoring it from the post, scoring it from the mid range, obviously, and the threat of the three. I don't think that what we saw from Slim this season is who he really is. He just looked as, I think Team USA last summer really took some wind out of his sails, because prior to the toe injury last season, well, not last season, but season 4 last, he had a little bit more bop in his step. He was decisive on his drives. He had more elevation. That shot, even though he's got a long shooting motion, that shot came out with some speed. So I think that's more of the Brandon Ingram we know and we've come to like than we saw this past season. I just think there's the Team USA and the kind of fuzzy start to the season and locker room influx kind of played a part in what he did overall, which is ironically one of his healthiest seasons in his recent stint with the team. But I just think some of the trades, Chris, that we've hearing, the BI for DeJounte Murray straight up is the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Just from a standpoint of we kind of know that BI will be traded at some point. So those rumors will probably have a little bit more validity, except that one. That one is just ridiculous.
What about you, Myles? What are you thinking when you hear? I mean, what do you think when you hear of BI getting traded in general? Like, what would be worth it for it, for that to even make sense?
Yeah, man. The thing about BI for me, and just to piggyback off Coach a little bit, this wasn't who he is. I think his stock did go down a little bit, but I think people that really know ball know that, hey, he's still young. He's still so young, still has so much potential. And you hope that chip on the shoulder really, drives him to get to that place that he can be, because BI in his purest form is a 3-level scorer that has very good facilitation. And when he really gets going, he's a good leader and he's a likable guy. He has the good character that the Pelicans love to brag about when it comes to anybody in that locker room. So I think any smart team would definitely buy into his stock while it's low. It's the smart business move to make because, I mean, you could be getting a guy that can get you over a hump when healthy, granted,
Mm-hmm.
but he can definitely be a glue guy for a big team. I see a lot of. I just saw a post Kendrick Perkins talking about him going to the Timbs. I don't know if that happens, obviously, but let's say in another world, if it did, like, yeah, that would be great for them. It's like another tall wing that could be
Yep.
a 3 level scorer. The whole load isn't on, he doesn't have to carry the entire offensive load. And I think what people forget and what we saw this year is BI is a two-way player when he's really, locked in. He has the size for it. It's really about, does he have the grit? And I think he does. I think he really bought into the system that they were trying to put on the floor. And also, the guy can rebound the ball. And we saw him play, bigs that aren't the easiest matchup to, go against, and him accept that matchup and, do a pretty good amount of justice for that matchup. So, yeah, I don't think the 1v1 trades for him, like to DeJounte Murray, is realistic in any sense. But I do agree. We don't want any lateral moves. It's we
No.
need to be as proactive as we can being in the West. I just posted
Mm-hmm.
something about 49 wins. We keep harping on 49 wins. 49 wins, that's big for the New Orleans Pelicans. Like that is big, but it's not where we are in the time of the NBA. And if we're just, talking about being back in the day, like this would be good enough back in the day. Well, we're not back in the day. So what can we do to be proactive against this highly talented West? Just look at the
Mm-hmm.
teams that are in the finals. They got bigs everywhere. They got vets. They have defenders. They have stars that star in the key moments. So a lot of this trade talk, I love it. Obviously, it's the off season. We're talking roster configuration and things of that nature. But all this ends up like if Zion's not balling, if he's not healthy, if the
Mm-hmm.
coaches aren't willing to put a system that optimizes the players on the court, then it don't matter what trade you make. If you're not going to work with the talent that you have, then we're going to
Mhm.
be seeing the same product on the floor. So for me, it's about how can you supply the talent that optimizes Zion Williamson and really gives this team a fighting chance to respectfully play for this city, um, and get to that point where they can say, "Hey, we have a road ahead of us." Because it's this past 5 years, it seemed like we've been we plateaued. We just sort of get to the same spot, even though we have been progressing. I just think
Right.
it's important that we make whatever smart trade is out there. I don't want us to jump the gun. I also don't want us to not reach for the stars when we should. And I'm saying that because I am a believer and I think we should be going, trying to get Trey Young. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also trying to be a little realistic and say he's got a market for himself as well. Just if things don't fall in our place, don't make a dumb move hoping for like a great outcome. Just let's be
Yeah.
smart about all of our moves because you still got the draft, you still got trades that can happen in the season. I don't want anything too forced, but I also don't want to be underwhelming, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's really my key takeaway from this offseason. But for me, the biggest thing is the draft. Like I'm so excited to see what these young guys got because they are so underappreciated for who they are. And we keep hearing about like this is a underwhelming draft class. It might not produce an impact player right away, but I can tell you they got players in this draft class that are going to be on teams and they're going to make a difference in 2 to 3 years. I believe that with my whole heart.
Yeah, and I can see that happening. I think that's why people are feeling like, okay, this is underwhelming because you might not have any guys that come right out and they're immediate starters and making a big impact. But I want to go back to one thing, and it sort of touches on the draft and trades and all. We are talking so much about BI and how much, he's still young and he still has room to grow and all of this. Is there a move the Pelicans can make where BI can stay on the team and we can be successful by adding a different piece? Or do you feel like BI has to go, period, because we need somebody better in that role? Don't y'all all answer at once, okay?
I don't. I don't. I literally just told somebody this about 10 minutes before I hopped on here with y'all. You can't run it back with Slim if you're not gonna get some level of commitment to increasing his 3-point volume. And I told him I don't know if you'll put that in the clause because he's not gonna get the supermax being a New Orleans Pelican, just based off what we saw. And it sucks because the 4 games in the playoffs is not what I think Brandon Ingram is. And I don't know that I gave him enough grace coming off that injury because he probably rushed back. He wasn't 100% healthy. And he ran up against, he came back off injury into playoff physicality against Lou Dort, who's built like a refrigerator. It's like slim guys built like Brandon Ingram. Their arch nemesis are guys who are built like Lou Dort, period. Like Lou Dort couldn't do a lot of that with Luka because even though Luka's a little bit taller, he's stout. He's stocky, So, but I also told my buddy, even though they put those weight conditioning clauses in Zion's contract, I don't know that you can do the same thing with a guy going on 10 years like Brandon Ingram. Because at the end of the day, to a point Miles made earlier, for all of the good things BI brings to the court, he's 6'10" almost. And so he brings all of those good things as a player, the mid-range, the post scoring, the playmaking, the rebounding, the buy-in defensively, which offers some versatility. He's not able to guard centers if he's not almost 6'10". Right. And that's a big reason why you don't trade him straight up for anybody like DeJounte Murray, because DeJounte Murray doesn't provide you with that. He can't guard Jared Allen if you want to play small ball. Now that's not to say BI can go and guard Jokic or Embiid, but hell, there's not many people that can anyway. True centers can't guard them dudes. So, but to answer your question, I don't know that you can run it back with Slim if there is no at least baseline level of commitment to increasing, hit this number. You got to hit this number per game or every so often. Now, can he change? Yes, because we've seen CJ McCollum, who's been one type of person or one type of player, a high usage on ball guy throughout his whole career, commit to being a high level off ball catch and shoot guy. And he thrived in that role for the Pels when everybody was healthy. So to say BI can't change is wrong when we had somebody on the roster who was this type of player. And look, CJ still had catch and shoot capabilities because when you're playing next to Dame and you're playing off the ball, you got to be able to catch and shoot anyway.
Right.
But that being said, we all, CJ is a certified bucket, and we're not calling him a certified bucket because he's catching and shooting. We call him a certified bucket because of what he does with the ball in his hands. So for him to change and make changes rather, or make adjustments to his own skill set, or rather take the Ray Allen approach and focus on or enhancing or, adding to, committed to being an off-ball guy, for the betterment of the team and hell, to extend his career. I think BI can make a change like that. It's just a matter of who can convince him to do that. I don't know that nobody with the Pels can convince him to do that though.
But that's what I was going to say is, why wouldn't he want to make those changes? I mean, if the Pels say, hey, we're going to give you, more than any other team will, not the supermax amount, you get to stay in New Orleans, you already know everything here. Why not make the changes? That, to me, that would be a no-brainer. Like, sure, you want me to shoot the ball more? Like, I'm going to make it happen, or whatever the role is. Like, to me, starting all over somewhere else, I mean, I just don't know. And also, I like
because them dudes don't care. It's a bigger check clearing in Charlotte, or it's a bigger check clearing in Cleveland. It don't even matter because it's a bigger check that's clearing. And some guys, and I'm not saying that they're slim, but to answer your question too, like why would you not want to make that adjustment? If you're BI, you're saying, I since I've been here, this Zion has rarely been available. And even though he can't talk about anybody's availability, but for the most part, Bi has bought in, Bi has led, Bi has done everything right off the court, has took guys under his wing, and he's always had to like, now Zion's healthy now, so Bi you got to go take the back seat. He's had to do that multiple times, and I would be surprised if that played a part in some of the early season struggles that the Pels had in general, not just him, but everybody in general, because there was some tug and pull, and there was some uncertainty, and there was some second guessing with, is Zion in? Is he out? And BI like, all right, I got the rock in my hands. Okay, now he's back healthy, so I got to get a rock up, and I got to sacrifice. Yeah. Like, maybe you just want to go somewhere and not want to have to deal with that, and just like, I can actually be who I want to be and still get paid and be appreciated, because y'all telling me like I can really be this. So if you ask yourself why not make the adjustment to stay in New Orleans, there may be a reason.
Yeah, you're right. You might just be ready to move on. What do you think about that, Myles?
Yeah, I mean, we asked why not. I mean, it could be so many reasons. It could be, a management issue. It could be, I don't think it is a locker room issue, but I mean, there could be a little bit of tension there just off the fact that Brandon Ingram has consistently, even though he does get injured a good bit, but for the most part, the product that you're going to get with Brandon Ingram. And look, I went to the game where I think he went like threes back to back or something like that. And I was just like, wow, this is great to see. Brandon Ingram shooting threes. He's making them. He's confident. He's throwing the the sign up. He getting lit. And I think that's something that he can do, but it felt like a moment rather than, that's who he is. And I think his consistent tendency to get to his spots, mid-range post-ups, are just getting to the lane. That sort of just settled in with who he is. Like Coach said, he definitely can change. It's about who's around you. It's about who your mentor is. It's about who your mentor's mentor is, and how you go through that lineage of the people you look up to. If I was Brandon though, and I was seeing, I was reading the room, and I was watching greatness, I would just take a page out of LeBron's book. He had to get that three better. Had to. He would not be here today if he didn't get that three better. Bron would be cramping up, getting hurt. If he did not get that three better, it'd be murky waters for Bron. Not saying that he still couldn't do it, because Bron is unbelievable, but you've got to get to that perimeter. The game demands it, and if Brandon doesn't understand that, then it's better for the Pelicans to get off of him immediately, because he's just not going to optimize the spacing on the floor, and him dealing with the struggles of not coming to terms with that could negatively impact the entire locker room and the entire, just organization, because everybody's like, why can't this guy buy in? And if we're going to let it slide with him buying in, getting max money, then why should I even care about buying in with the things that you're telling me? And I just don't think that's what this team needs. Even though I love Brandon Ingram, I would love for it to work here, but you're not about to have Brandon Ingram just run with the second unit so Zion can get another unit that optimizes him. There's not enough money for on the New Orleans Pelicans to have two teams. It's just not going to work like that. So you go with Zion, you optimize the players around him, and you wish for the best. But we see this time and time again. Like you said, CJ had to get his game a little different. JV had to change his game up a little bit. We're starting to see Zion change his game up. I mean, I was there. I saw the
his 3-point percentage.
Exactly.
You see Zion really buying in on the defense, and Brandon did that too. But Zion buying into the defense, Zion at least attempting a three to keep the defense honest. And might I add, his form in the pull-up, it looks very fluid. It looks very good, in my opinion. Can it use some work? Yes, because it seemed the thing with shooting in basketball, especially at this level, this level of speed that you're playing with, the milliseconds mattered so much. It's just if you are in any way unsure about this move that you're about to do, it could definitely affect negatively your shot if you're not, all in with it. And that goes with confidence in the practice room. Are you confident when you just shot 100 shots? Are you confident doing it over your buddies, over your, over your fam? Like it's got to be in your DNA at some point because you're playing the best in the world and you've got to have the best confidence in the world. And I just don't think right now Brandon Ingram is being the best critic of himself.
Right.
If he was, I think we'd be getting a better product. And I wanted that. But it's just, we don't have time to wait. I focus on the front of the jersey, not the back. I wish him the best. I hope he go gets his money. I hope he has a long career. But if he can't figure that out right now, then he should not be in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think one thing is that the Pelicans, even with the 49 wins, like agreed, that was great. But it's sort of like we were talking about earlier. If let's say you're playing on a D1 team, you're the best of the best around, period. You are. But there's only a handful, 7 to 8 guys that are actually going to get playing time. And that's where the Pelicans are right now. They're sort of sitting the bench in the West. Yeah, they are a really, really good team, but they're sitting the bench right now and they need to up their playing time. They need to make some moves because the fan base is like, when are we going to quit the play-in? When are we going to win a playoff series? Yeah. When are we going to make a run? That is what the fans need to see. That's what is going to be determined whether it's a successful season or not coming up. And so I think those are the adjustments that have to be made now. And they keep saying, oh, we're all in and we're going to be going hardcore at this. It's like, they better do it this year because people are, we're tired. We're tired of it just being very mediocre every year.
No, definitely. I say this, this past 4 or 5 years as, watching the Pelicans, like I said, we're tired of being stagnant or moving laterally. It's definitely time for a change. Change the jerseys, change the court, change whatever you got to change the roster, change the coach. But we need something refreshing. We need something uplifting. And, the biggest thing you could do to uplift is put a product on that floor that gets people out their seats. Because I'll tell you one thing, when the blender jumping, I don't think there's any other stadium in America banging with the blender. This city needs it so bad. I can't explain to you how bad people in New Orleans just want to go. Like, they are very willing to go pay for those crazy ticket prices and go sit down in that stadium and just enjoy the camaraderie of being a part of the community and, rallying behind a team that, puts a good product on the floor. And you got guys like Zion Williamson trying to tap in and, with the community. You see the guys going to local boutique stores or hanging out with, local rappers or, anybody that's sort of part of the culture and that nature. And it makes you feel good about like, hey, our players like us. We want to like you too on the court though. Okay. So it's important that these guys, it's important that Zion Williamson gets his health together, gets that mindset ready. I need him, at Summer League on the sideline, giving Jordan Hawkins tips. I need him everywhere with this unit. They need to be going on vacation together. They need to be with their families. They need to do what the great teams do. I think I said this. I don't want this to be a Saints type of offseason where I got to see one of the leaders in DeMario Davis talking about why our guy's not here. That's not how the Pelicans are going to get it done. It's not Brandon Ingram and Cali and Zion and Portland or North Carolina or South Carolina or wherever. These guys need to come together. And I think management just as well, because, for me, it's a trickle down effect. If Gail's not going to allow it, then you best believe the last man on the bench not going to be, doing crazy stuff. I think it's time for us to really get serious. And I'm just really excited to see what this team could be, because this is an opportunity moment for this organization to really catapult themselves into that. Hey, we're going to be a 4 or 5 seed. We already know we could do it. We already know what the talent looks like in the West. We know we got to play Wemby. We know Memphis is coming back next year, ready to rumble. We know Houston is getting better. We know all these teams are getting better. What are we doing to be proactive against them getting significantly better? Because the NBA is just getting significantly better in such a short period of time. But it seems like the Pelicans is like 2 steps behind. It's like we're doing it, but we're not doing it enough for a real impact. I'm tired of, going on live television and we lose a game and everybody's like, oh, this is what the Pelicans are. Let's not even worry about them. But, shout out to Zion. I'm done with that stuff. And I think they need to be done with it too.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of, we got to get to the next level. Let's talk about this. I think will be a little fun, but we've got obviously the NBA finals. They begin Thursday for game 1. What do you see in those? Like, if the Pelicans were to get to that point, what do those two teams have that the Pelicans don't have? How would we currently match up if we were? I mean, I just can't imagine us playing either of these teams and not getting destroyed at this point. So what are y'all's thoughts on the finals and what these teams have that the Pelicans are currently missing?
Stars, man. And that's what, Myles, you mentioned putting a healthy product on the floor and being a bona fide 4 or 5 seed. That was the Pels in April. And then Zion got hurt. And then he put the cape on, and then BI got hurt. I mean, at the end of the day, the deeper you get in the playoffs, very rarely, I think it's probably been since the Detroit Pistons, where we saw a team that didn't have like a bona fide like household name on their roster and made a run, and actually win a chip, or at least compete for a chip. And that was a way different type of game. That was defensive, so you can get away with that at that time because it was slow pace. It was a defensive game at that time. But points are being put on the board, and your top guys got to be top guys. Period. And we don't have any 16-game dudes on our roster. I'm thrilled with the 49 wins because at least it gives you a barometer, right? It's not something that I'm happy with it because we won 49 games, the most we won in a long time. It's just like, okay, we saw what Zion looks like when he plays 60-plus games. That was one of the goals I had for the roster. BI and Zion play at least 50 games together, knowing that they'll probably sit back to back. What you're gonna get from CJ, and Herb increased his shooting percentage from 3, so now he can't be played off the court, or you can't hide anybody on him. So some of those measuring sticks that my personal measure sticks, the Pels met them during the season. But to your Myles, you even said it. You need Zion to get his health right. Like, okay, you played 70 games and you couldn't play in the playoffs. So now there's an opportunity for everybody to see, you get to play on the biggest stage since the in-season tournament when you got embarrassed. And what do you know? Now you're on the sideline of street clothes again. So, Chrissy, to your point, these teams will destroy the Pels because they have stars that have been available. They may not play 80 games, but when you start the 16 games that matter to get the trophy, Luka has been available, Kyrie's been available, Jason Tatum has been available, Jaylen Brown has been available. And no surprise that while Porzingis hadn't been available and he's been impactful for Boston, they haven't missed a beat because those max contract dudes, those $300 million dudes have been playing, plain and simple. And we know Kyrie had a checkered recent past of his own doing because he just don't know how to shut up. As a number 2, Kyrie's legit. Like, we've seen Kyrie do work on the big stage. We've seen him in playoff runs with Cleveland. So it's not like he may not be megastar, but he's still one of them ones when it comes to playing 16 games in the playoffs. So if your top guys, your max guys can't be available, then it don't matter who you got on the floor, Myles. If them dudes ain't playing, then you're not gonna last long anyway.
Yeah, and to your point, we're talking about teams with stars. The Pelicans had one star at the moment, and that star went down because Brandon Ingram he wasn't a star. He wasn't going to be a star. It was going to be, I think, too brutal for him, and I think health-wise, he would have just kept regressing because I'm pretty sure him being on the floor didn't help where he was, getting off of injury. He was probably
Mm-hmm.
still, lingering, and especially with
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram, he's big on being 100%, having that confidence in his body. And as somebody that's had, injuries before, that's real. And I think people just push it to the side too much. It like not being able to trust your body is one of the scariest things in the world, especially, as a professional with the lights on, not being able
Mm-hmm.
to, know if you can move laterally. And that's a huge part, or get that burst when you got to jump over somebody big, because what teams demand of Brandon, most people couldn't do. Most people can't go above guys like Brandon. Most people can't do it in and out to the lane and dunk on somebody like Brandon. Most people can't move laterally on the perimeter like Brandon Ingram. So he was demanded, probably something that he could never gave us. I think it's important when we talk about Celtics Mavs and we look at how their roster is, just so deep. And the Pelicans, for the longest, people were saying, hey, the Pelicans got a deep roster. And that's great. We just had a
Mm-hmm.
deep roster, probably one of the top 5 deepest rosters in the NBA, if you ask me. And our stars weren't there. So
Bingo.
it all comes down
Yeah.
to, are your stars going to be there? Is Zion going to be there? And I want to be very, frank with the Pelicans, fan base. That first time that they go, do not be mad at Zion for not being great in the play. He's not played any playoffs. He has zero
Absolutely.
experience. And these guys
Yep.
are still so young. Let them experience things. Let them lose. Let them win with grace. Let them be humble in a loss. Let them be able to be critiqued in front of, they all, especially Zion. He gets so much criticism, but he still has so much more criticism to come because he just
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been there enough to get that real criticism that he needs from a coach saying, hey, you made a low IQ play in one of the biggest moments, or hey, you just missed the layup when you should have dunked it, or these things. He has to experience that. And Brandon Ingram, too, he sort of just experienced it. And I think
Yeah,
it'll
he did.
change how it'll be next season for him. If Brandon Ingram is on a team that goes to
Yep.
the playoff next year, I will be watching that entire series. Not even a question, because I wouldn't doubt that Brandon has that lingering on his mind and he does something about it. But that's for another day. But yeah, the Pelicans, they need to focus on, because this team is, for a team that's deep, they're not deep right now. You're probably gonna be losing a lot of guys, you know, guys that are very important, like Najee. I think we keep
Yep.
Jose, but he's still up in the air. You don't know about JV. I started to hear some rumors about CJ, but I'm pretty sure CJ is staying here. I don't think I think he's pretty much untouchable at this point. Um, so yeah, you just sort of hope for growth with the guys that are untouchable on this team. But if you were to ask me, like, what can we take from Dallas and Boston, it's to have healthy stars, play like stars, and that to have role players that
Mhm.
buy in, and to have coaches with experience, because not just the players, the coaches on both of those teams have like real deal experience. Missoula, not as much, but I mean, he's been a part of organizations that got there, so he still has that experience. Willie, he did it with the Warriors, but I think it's really important because we're seeing what James Borrego was going on there. I just don't know if it's even a proper
Yeah.
question to bring that up. I think it's pretty disrespectful to teams with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, because I love Herb Jones. Herb Jones ain't doing nothing to Luca and Kyrie, because
No.
at the end of the
Nope.
day, they
No.
got bigs for days
Mm-mm.
that's going to screen them. And Luca, it don't matter how much you could have 2 knives on his neck, he's going to make the shot. That's just who he
Yep.
is. And I'm talking about Luca. It's like Kyrie Irving, what are we even talking about? Kyrie Irving is phenomenal. There's nobody that can guard this guy. He makes some of the toughest shots. And then they have lob
Mhm.
threats. That's where the Pelicans absolutely are garbage in. If a team has a lob threat, you might as well call it a day, because we don't have a big that can get vertical enough. I think that's JV's biggest, negative you could probably put on him, is that he's just not a guy that can get vertical. But I say this, the Celtics got a guy that don't get vertical, and Al Horford. And I'd love JV to be like that version of him for the Pels. Not saying it's gonna happen, but it's just like one of my dreams. One of my dreams, man.
Well, and I think that a perfect example are the Timberwolves. I mean, you've got a lot of phenomenal players, but they didn't have experience, and they, like you were saying, when the Pelicans do hopefully get there next year in a playoff series, you're going to see the inexperience. That's part of the process. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think the exact same thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. We don't have the big enough star to get us to this point, and we're just wanting it so bad. We're craving it over here, and we've seen like flashes of greatness where we're like, oh man, we can hang with any of these teams in the West, and then just all kind of keep crumbling apart at the end of every year. So, but
I will say this.
I know. So hey, hopefully off season.
I was gonna say I will say this. Having Zion Williamson on your team is a privilege, though. Zion Williamson can easily will his way versus any of these teams because I don't see anybody on those teams that can stop Zion. Just as much as I said, I don't think anybody can stop Luka. Granted, Luka 3-level scorer. It gets a little bit more real when you got a guy that can do it like that and facilitate because he's just such a threat. It's just it's unbelievable what he does. But I do trust in Zion Williamson with the right squad and Willie Green also being able to take criticism. I think that's important. Iron sharpens iron and get you a coaching staff that's going to tell you about yourself, have some type of back on the wall, back to the wall mentality and really grind out how to, communicate to your players how we're about the ball. Because at the end of the day, it's just about it's basketball. It's you in the playoffs. It's about who's willing to fight. We got to get fighters and we got to get stars that fight the entire time.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. Well, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I just want to say thank you for joining me today on the show. I love Myles. You're always, rocking with me. Appreciate that. And Mike, appreciate you hopping on today too. You are welcome anytime to join. So,
absolutely.
Hey, hopefully we'll do this again soon, and we'll have some good things to report with the Pelicans off-season moves.